What's up, guys? Welcome to Jew Whiskey. I'm Jeff. Today, we're going to be continuing the series that I started last week where I go over all of the open bottles that I currently have in my home. Last week, we talked about Islay whiskeys and island whiskeys. Today, we're going to be talking about world whiskeys, which is to say whiskeys that are not Scotch, that are not from Scotland, but they're instead from the world. They're from planet Earth. So it'll be interesting. Stick around. All right, before we kick things off, quick reminder, you guys have a few more days to vote in the OSWAs, the Online Scotch Whisky Awards. These are the most transparent awards out there. They're from you guys, they're for you guys. If you haven't voted yet or you don't know what they are, I'll link the website down below. So we started going through my open bottles last week, and I feel like I really got to clarify something because last week you guys jumped on me because I didn't have this brand or this bottle. This constitutes about 60% of my total whiskey collection because these are all bottles that I bought and paid for myself. A good chunk of my collection are at my friend's place because we split bottles together, which if you're into whiskey, great way to save money. If you guys aren't doing that, you should be doing it yourselves. But yeah, this is not everything is my point. I did pick up a bit of flack last week because people were like, where's your Bunnahavens? Where's your Lagavulins? I do have them. In fact, Bunnahaven, I have the 12-year-old cask strength from 2022 here. Totally forgot to include that in the Isla video. Sometimes I forget things, and a lot of what you think should be here or should be part of my collection, I may or may not have elsewhere. But like I said, this is only roughly 60%. Anyway, for today, it's World Whiskies, and I'll be honest, I don't have a lot of World Whiskies. A lot of that comes down to access, but I'll admit part of it is interest as well. I do have a preference for Scotch, but I should be more promiscuous, as Roy would put it. I've got some, but there's a lot of obscure things out there. I don't have any access to stuff from, I don't know, South Africa. Very little in the way of mainland European whiskeys. A few French ones here and there. I think we do have some Swedish stuff in here. Australian stuff, very limited. So a lot of world whiskeys I don't have much access to, or it's sparse. So yeah, a little disclaimer there. Now that that's out of the way, let's pop into this. By the way, as always, I do have a mystery pour in my glass here. This one is from Canada. It's one that a lot of people are getting excited about, and it's a single malt. And that's where I'll leave you. That's your hint. Yeah, let's jump into this. In the meantime, if you'll kindly leave a like down below, that would be greatly appreciated. Actually, hold on. Before we do that, I should explain why the set and the lighting and everything looks like this. I did mention in the last video, but I didn't mention it here. I just moved. We've got a temporary set. Everything's going to be very low effort and really quickly put together, cobbled together, if you will, over the next couple weeks. So apologies for that. All right, let's pop in. So we'll start things off with my only whiskey from mainland Europe, and that is a Swedish whiskey. This is the Mackmyra Bjorksav, which has been matured in Swedish birch sap wine casks. This is a little bit sweet. It's an interesting cask influence. I do like this whiskey. I don't love it, but it's solid. Mackmyra does have some good releases though. But I think the best one I had from them was like a green tea infused cask or something like that. Really interesting stuff. Long discontinued. But yeah, they're an experimental brand. They're an eco-friendly brand, if memory serves. A lot of you were worried. Well, not worried. A lot of people were upset to hear that this distillery was meant to close. We got that news, I think, last month, maybe 2 months back. Apparently, that's been reversed. Someone else has stepped in, and they will not be shutting down Mackmyra. So that's good news for Swedish whiskey fans. This one, not bad. All right, now we're moving over to Japan, and I've got a few Nikas. We'll start with Nika's whiskey from the barrel. 51.4%. This is a blend, and it's a blend of more than just Japanese whiskey. I believe we've got some Scotch in here too. If memory serves, it should be from Ben Nevis. And of course, we'll have plenty of stuff from the Yoichi and Miyagi-Kyo distilleries in here. This is a great budget blend, good flavors, a little bit of sherry, a little bit of peat, a little bit of everything in there, and it does have that sort of Japanese touch. Good bang for buck. Recommended. Next up, we have another blend from Nika. This one is the Taketsuru, and this one is all malt, and it's all Japanese whiskeys. So this would be from the Yoichi and Miyagi-Kyo distillery, 43%. Good flavors. I do think it's a little bit light at 43%, but solid enough. But to be honest, if we're talking budget and just in terms of bang for buck, I would go with the from the barrel. Next up, if you want to level up to a single malt and honestly level up your enjoyment, Yoichi single malt. This is a beautiful whiskey. It's another Nika. In fact, all of my Japanese are Nikas. This one leans more smoky. than most of Nikka's other brands. 45%, absolutely delicious stuff. It's not cheap for a no age stated whiskey under 46%. Most things out of Japan just are not that cheap. This is more at the budget friendly end of the spectrum when it comes to Japanese single malts, though. And to be honest, it's really good. I'm actually happy with the price. It's not that expensive here in Taiwan. And I think in your market, as long as you can find it for under, let's say, $80 US, sure, go ahead, give it a try. Next and last out of Japan, we have my favorite from the bunch. This is my favorite single malt from Nikka. This is the Miyagi-Kyo. I think the Yoichi gets a little bit more love, and it does lean a little bit more peaty. Peaty whiskeys they're crowd pleasers. This one has a touch of peat, but it's also wonderfully fruity. Great complexity, just a really satisfying, rich, and well-composed whiskey. So this is actually my favorite from the bunch. Another great option, and typically in most markets, this would be a little bit less expensive than the Yoichi. So highly recommend this one. All right, now we're going to move on to Irish stuff. Normally, I would have a little bit more in the way of Irish. I don't have much right now. In fact, I've only got one bottle, and that one bottle is Redbreast 21. This one, not cheap at all. It is an absolutely beautiful whiskey. I've reviewed it before on the channel. You can check out that review. Gorgeous stuff. Easily my favorite Redbreast. The issue here is price and value. Now, I got it for under 200 US in my market, and I think it goes for more than that now. I think it's since gone up. This is not cheap in most markets, so it's not one that I'm going to tell you to go out and buy. Certainly, if you can get your hands on, maybe a pour at a bar, maybe your buddy has it, it is worth checking out, though. It is absolutely beautiful stuff. We're going to follow that up with a Welsh whiskey. This one is the Penderyn Sherrywood. This is one that is very budget friendly, at least here in Taiwan, under $30 US. And I think for that, you're getting a really nice whiskey. It's 46%, I believe. Yeah, it is. It's 46%. It's non-chill filtered. Not sure about color, but probably natural color. I did no research for this video. But yeah, not outstanding. It's not going to blow your mind, but for the price, I think this is a really lovely dram. Next up, we're going to move on to American single malts, which is a category that's very underrepresented here in Taiwan. We don't have access to much at all. I think we do have one or two brands, but very sparse, often overpriced. But the reason I have a few here is because I've got a buddy in the States who comes to Taiwan every so often, and he tends to bring these bottles over because he's trying to sell me on American single malts. Tim, I appreciate the effort. We're going to start off with this one right here. This one's called Tire Fire. And as the name implies, it is a fun name. As the name implies, this is a peated whiskey. It's out of Georgia. Non-chill filtered, natural color, 45.5% ABV. It is interesting. Now, is it good? It's interesting. Next up, we've got something substantially better. This one is called Westland. This is the standard American single malt. They have a bunch of expressions out there. And this is from Oregon? Washington. Isn't that the same place? Anyway, this one, kind of bready, a little bit more complex, much more interesting, and much more of a developed character than the Tire Fire. This one is fun. It's not great, but it is really solid. It is really good. It's not too expensive if memory serves. I think between $60 and $70. I could be wrong there. Worth that, and it's good. Next up, we've got 117 Degrees West Spirits. This is a seemingly very small batch because this is written, I think it's not stamped on. I think it's actually written in pen. 45% ABV, batch number 24. And Tim is based in San Diego, and this distillery is based in San Diego. Tim actually met the owner, so I don't know if the camera will catch that, but the owner actually wrote to Jeff. So that's my first signed bottle from an industry guy. So that's very exciting. This whiskey is very nice. Yeah, genuinely delicious stuff. And finally, we have a Balcones. This is the first Balcones that I ever tried. And in fact, it's the only Balcones that I've ever tried. People talk a lot about this brand. This is probably the most famous single malt out of the United States. And this one is not a particularly expensive one. I think it's under 50 bucks, maybe around $40, somewhere like that. This one is called Lineage. And for that, 47%, I don't know how it's made or anything. This one's out of Texas. Really good, really good. And I think out of the American single malts I have, certainly from a value prospect, you're getting a lot for not very much money here. Solid stuff. All right, so that's it for our single malt out of the States done. I do have bourbons. We'll start with the one that I reviewed recently that a lot of you will be expecting here. This one is Booker's. Booker's is good. This batch is a different batch. This one is an export batch, so not one you'll find in the States, but it is 2024-01E, E meaning export. Absolutely delicious stuff. This is 7 years, 1 month, and 12 days old, 62.2% ABV. Not mucking about. Powerful, punchy, complex, really fun stuff. Highly recommended. If you haven't tried a Booker's, try a Booker's. They're good. Next up, the only other bourbon in my collection, it is Jack Daniel's Single Barrel Proof. Now this one, it's a 375 milliliter bottle. Absolutely adorable, by the way. 64.65% alcohol. This one is one, I think because it's from a big brand, it doesn't get a lot of love. You know, Jack Daniel's doesn't make an enthusiast's heart swoon, but this is really solid bourbon. And I know it's, you know, charcoal filtering. Formerly it's Tennessee whiskey, and Tennessee whiskey isn't bourbon. Yeah, okay. Regardless, absolutely love this one. Now they are batchy. Some of them lean a little bit more fruity, some more spicy. So the batches are kind of fun to explore. And don't sleep on this one just because it's a Jack Daniels. Absolutely fantastic stuff. Next up and last, we've got a whiskey from my home and native land. We've got a Canadian here. This is not a single malt. This one is a blend. This is the 23-year-old Wiser's Cask Strength. Now this one came out a few years back. I couldn't tell you what year, 2019, 20, something like that. So it'll be a tough one to find even within Canada right now. Canada tends to keep a lot of the good stuff for themselves. They don't export too much, but yeah, if you're in Canada and you can still find basically any one of these. Now they have different ages. They had a 35-year-old. I think there's a 27-year-old that even made it out as far as Sweden. They have a few releases like this, and if you get any cask strength blend with a solid age statement from Wiser's, highly recommend it. These are punchy, brimming with character, very, very commanding, powerful whiskeys. Check them out if you can. Oh, I just realized I forgot to mention the ABV on this one. This one is 64.3%. So great if you need chest hair. All right, that's it. That's the list, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. And of course, I want to hear from you. So what world whiskeys were sorely lacking from my collection? What world whiskeys would you recommend that I keep an eye out for? What countries are making whiskey that might surprise me? Let me know that down below. Finally, if you stuck around to find out what the mystery pour is here, I mentioned that it's a single malt out of Canada. My friend went to Canada recently and he brought a sample pack of Macallan's, not sure how to say that, single malt whiskey. Now, this is a brand or a distillery founded by a Scot, and since it's got Scottish heritage, he decided to use Gaelic names for his whiskeys, and that's always fun for me. Anyway, the one I'm drinking here is called Cathna Avon, 46%, matured in PX and Oloroso casks, so it's a sherried whiskey. Not the greatest one in the sample pack, but still very solid. I think my favorite is Anloy. But yeah, these across the board, pretty good baseline of quality, and the ones that are really good are really good. So if you're in Canada or if you have access to this brand outside of Canada, which I actually do, they actually sell here in Taiwan. So I will be exploring more from these guys. But yeah, Macaloni's, good stuff. And that brings us to the end of the video, guys. Thank you very much for watching. As always, I do want to thank my supporters. And if you want to help keep the channel financially sustainable and independent, I do have both Patreon and PayPal linked down below. Anything and everything helps. And stay tuned for next time. I think next time we're going to get into some Highland stuff, which is, for me, that's where a lot of the good stuff is. Yeah, see you next time.